This particular training, as mentioned, does not include guidance on business processes, policies, or regulations that govern your particular district's way of doing business. We will try to keep things as general as possible so that you can utilize RMS to fit your district's needs. The PowerPoint slides can be downloaded from the RMS website as well, so you guys can reach out and grab that. We actually had one question yesterday regarding a comparison report. Bosley was able to get the information for me, and we were able to set up a contract that actually has that information. So I want to go ahead and start that off real quick today. And we're going to jump into the contract that has that particular report. We're going to go over to contract reports. And then in contract reports, we're going to go over to the schedule. And then under schedule, we have the activity schedule comparison report. And essentially, this report is what you will use to compare multiple schedules. So in this case, you can choose 2 schedules. We're going to choose these 2 schedules. Those are the only 2 schedules that we have. And then we can go ahead and preview this particular report. It'll go ahead and do its calculations and its gyrations and run. It's actually showing up on my other screen. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here on this screen here. And we have our information there, CUI, and then we have our comparison report, which is generated here. And then from there, we also have our comparison report in a detailed view, so we can see the activities which are compared and the different schedule changes that have occurred. And then the final page for the report. So if you are trying to run a comparison report, just realize that you need to have multiple schedules. If you only have one schedule, it won't run. You need at least 2 schedules in there to be able to run the comparison report. All right, so let me back out of that. Okay, and hopefully that answered the question from yesterday regarding the comparison report. If not, we'll hit the questions again at the end of this section, and then we can bring that up once more to try to resolve that particular question. All right, today we're going to be hitting in creating custom reports and queries. Once you or your users have entered your data into RMS, it's no good unless you can pull it out again and use the data in a meaningful way. So reporting allows you to be able to discover, interpret, and communicate meaningful data by examining the patterns found in the data. RMS has many different reports that's built into the system. Summary reports, contract reports that the developers have put in at the behest of the PMO and headquarters. So those reports are in there, but sometimes we don't cover all the bases. There might be a report or 2 that you need for your particular district, and this is where creating custom reports and queries comes in. The custom reporting tool lets you create reports using the data that suits your particular district's needs. With the Telleric custom reporting tool, you can configure all the settings, including which data source to use, which fields and filters to include, and when and how often to run that particular report. In order to access the custom reports from the district menu, you'll go up to the district library, you'll choose the district library, and then you'll be able to view the custom reports option from within that particular module. And when you're in there, you'll be able to see the data grid, and you can view the reports from the data grid. As far as listing view, you'll be able to see all the predefined custom reports, the report title, the report author, report type, whether or not it's a district or a contract report, and then the report menu. Going backwards, you'll be able to hit the query definitions, and sometimes you may want to generate a particular custom query for a particular district or report in order to aggregate data, basically combining data from multiple sources, processing that data for new insights, and presenting that aggregated data in a summary view of some sort. That's where the query definitions comes in, and that is primarily for the district level reports. Even though you create them for a district level report, though, you can also tweak the query so that it views the data at a contract level as well. It constrains the data at a contract level, and then you can use those in your reports, in your Telleric reports. The query definitions view lists the data grid as well. You'll see the query name as well as the query title and the name of the author who penned that particular report. It allows you to create those custom queries at the district level as well. So you'll be able to add custom queries from this level and then choose them when you are setting up your custom reports. We also have the asset store. So if creating reports from scratch is not your thing, you can enjoy the RMS asset store where you can find resources such as reports and queries and templates that have already been created. Contract groups also exist there, and those are included from other districts as well. So you can pull that from there. In order to get to the RMS asset store, that's in the system library. When you click on the system library view, you'll then be able to navigate over to the RMS asset store. And within the RMS asset store, you'll be able to see all of the asset store information that's listed, your asset type, your title, the source district who created that, the author, and then the last updated date of that particular asset that you're trying to view. And then obviously from the blue tiles at the top, you can provide a total number of reports that are available in each one of those report groups. Okay, and with that, we'll just jump into the custom reports. Let me go ahead and pull up RMS. All right, so within RMS, you can go ahead and jump into the district library. And then from the district library, you'll have your custom reports option from here as well. And from your custom reports, you can add, edit, or delete a particular custom reports. You can choose a custom report that's already existing, and then you can edit that particular custom report. One of the key features with the custom reports is sometimes you'll want to know where to get your particular data from. We have a data dictionary, which is listed in the reports view. And you can also utilize one of our options where if you go to a particular view or a particular screen, in this case, I'll go into a contract. And let's say I go to contract description. We can do what's called a control right click, hold down the control key and then hit right click. And that will give you all of the fields and the table information of where those particular pieces of data can be pulled from. So in this case, we're pulling from the contract table, and then we're pulling proj_name as a field from the contract table. If you see any of the .x_x fields, these are developer fields, so you won't be able to pull these inside of your reports. So just be aware of that as you are developing your custom reports. By all means, this particular demo is not going to be able to be an exhaustive list, but it'll kind of break the ice a little bit on how the custom report is used. So we'll back up and then we'll jump back over to our district library and then our custom reports. And with our custom reports, we'll go ahead and click the add button and we'll go ahead and generate our custom reports here. And we'll call this train the trainer. All right, so our report title for this one, I just called it, it's auto numbering. Report number 61 was the auto number that it gathered. Let me move and the author, it automatically populates your name if you're logged in. The report type is either going to be district or contract. The district will put it in the system for the summary reports, whereas the contract will put it in your contract listing reports. So for this case, we're going to do a contract report. And the report menu is the folder that it'll be placed in on that particular menu. So when we go over there, I'll show you the actual report menus and how it's broken down if you haven't seen it yet. But you'll have administration, finances, QA/QC, submittals, schedules, or closeout, and it will appear in one of those folders. You'll have a area where you can type in your description. So you can type in whatever description is going to be meaningful to you. We also have a couple of new fields that you might not have seen before. These are whether or not, if it's a NATO classified, unclassified contract, you'll basically select the designation, or if the contract contains CUI, then you'll select that designation as well, and the appropriate header cover page will be printed on your report for those. I'm going to go ahead and hit no for mine. And then has the information released publicly. Depending on your choices up here, this will be constrained. So sometimes you won't have to worry about it, but other times you may have to choose. Required collections. These are the collections that will be used in your particular report. You can click add, and then you'll be able to choose from the custom reports collections that RMS has for you. It's built in, and then you'll just be able to go through and choose those reports. As we saw from the other screen that had the contract table, that would be this particular option here to choose the contract table, and then we can bind the fields for those for that contract table. And then obviously we can choose whichever other table. If we're in another report that needs to be selected, then we can make sure to choose that as well. Our report designer contract ID, this allows us to be able to run the report as we're generating it, so that we can see data that is filled in, so that we can pull that particular data and we can run previews on the report as we're designing the report. So if we're using a particular contract, we can go ahead and pull from that. And that will be the contract that it'll actually pull from. For my particular example, I'm going to go ahead and use the RFI KTR report. And I'm going to choose the RFI KTR collection to work from. Back up at the top here, we have our record GUIDs, and these record GUIDs here are used whenever you're working with these particular reports. They are downloaded locally to your system so that they can be editable. And then when you close the report, it allows you to post the report back up to the database. And that's what these particular record GUIDs here are allowing you to do. The under construction is basically telling you that the report is fully under construction. All right, so the under construction here allows you to be able to classify this particular report that you're designing as under construction. And the show in government mode allows you to be able to choose which classification you're going to show this report into, whether or not it's going to be government mode or it's going to show up in the contractor mode as well. And then from there, we can go ahead and launch the Telerik report. If for some reason we need to copy a report template from an RMS report center, we can do that here. We can click to copy a particular report template from the RMS reporting options that are listed there. We can choose to do that, or we can choose to copy a report template from an end user report. And whatever end user report we want to select, we can choose to copy that template. It'll copy the template over, but not the data. You will still have to choose the data elements as well. All right, so from that point, we'll go ahead and launch the Telerik Report Designer. And they'll give us a pop-up notification message letting us know where it's going to put the data. And it's going to start the opening process. And it's actually opening it for me on a different window. I'm going to drag it up to the top window in just a moment as soon as it's completed its opening process. Okay, and it's open. All right, and this is the presentation view of what you'll see when you actually get inside the report.
Hey, Gerald, this is Benita. You had a screen up a couple of slides ago where you showed CUI selections, security marking selections. That is not in production yet, and we did not want to confuse the users. So
copy that. So yeah, so I'm actually running all my data off of T2, and I'm actually using the latest production release that's available within T2. So that is the internal production release. And so that's what
and this is James. Just to comment real quick on this. If you run the older version on T2, it may crash because it is slated for that database, which is updated for the CUI production. That may be why. Over.
Right. Yes.
Proceed.
Okay. All right. Okay. Copy that. I think we're all caught up now. Okay. So for this information here, we actually have all of our displays which are showing. We start off here with our Data Explorer. We then have our properties, and we have our Group Explorer here. At the top level, we have our 4 tabs: our Home, our Insert, our Data, and our View tab. I'll go through each one of these just so that we can go through and understand what we're looking at. Okay, so when the actual Telerik Report Designer launches, you'll see your design surface here, which gives you a quick start. And basically, we insert certain parameter templates in there. And if you run a preview, which is in the upper left-hand corner, it'll run a preview of your particular report with items that are filled in from the base template that was sent into the report. Some of these particular items, as you can see, don't have any data as yet because we did not bind any data. So we're going to do that right now, though. So we're going to click Design. All right. When we look over here to our Data Explorer actually has our RMS data source, and we actually include 2. This was the collection that we chose, which is RFI, and then the collection that we always include within the reports is the RMS contract, so that you can always have RMS contract data. Within that RMS contract data, you can view all sorts of contract-specific information that you can include into your particular header. So for our case, I'm going to go ahead and delete this particular box here, and I'm going to add a contract ID field. Which is right here. And basically, I'm just going to drag it off and drag it over here. Stretch this out a little bit. And then if I run this particular preview, now we're going to see the contract ID showing up in there. So you'll notice, though, that RFI KTR does not have that particular option. And that's because of one of the inconsistencies with the way Telerik does its reporting. Only one element will actually include all of the fields listing. The other collections will not include the fields listing. There's some special things that you have to do. We have another training that actually goes over some of those alternate methods, but I'm not going to show those alternate methods for this one. I'm just going to show the basic method. And the basic method is using the field itself, the field information itself, when you're dealing with the table. So in our case, we're going to click on our field set here. And when we click on our field set, we'll notice that we have a box that aligns around our fields, our header, and then our surface area at the top. And this particular box right here that we will click in will allow us to select our table. Our table will then be highlighted in the properties section. And from the properties section, we can then choose our bindings. And then from within our bindings, we can choose bindings. We can create a new binding, and then we can choose our binding from here. And it gives us our list of all of our bindings that are available to us. And then from there, we also have our particular expressions that we can utilize as well from the bindings, from the binding segment. From this, we're going to choose our data source for our binding. And then from the data source, we're going to choose our fields, RFI KTR, and that will allow us to actually bind this table to RFI KTR. So at that point now, the field, the table is bound to RFI KTR, but if we run it, we're just going to see data. Basically, it's just field 1, field 2, field 3 being repeated over and over again. And that's just for the simple fact that we didn't enter the bound data. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So you can do this actually a couple of different ways. First way is just by double clicking here. And then the syntax to actually enter the bound data to bind the field is you'll enter equal fields and then dot and then the actual field information. In this case, we're going to say date submitted. And if you're wondering where I got the date submitted from, I just basically did the control right click on the RFI view, and that allowed me to see each one of those elements on the RFI view. All right, and we have one element entered. And then we go ahead and hit preview. And now we'll see our dates entered for that. We'll basically rinse and repeat on the other fields as well. RFI no for that one. And then RFI subject for that one. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and run our preview. And now we can start to see our data coming through. Now, this particular data over here is not formatted well, so we'll go through and start to format our particular data. We can right click on the field itself. When we right click on the field, we will have an expression and we'll have a format right underneath the expression. If we click on format, we can then choose the date and the type of date that we want to format it to. So if we want to just format it simple, we can choose that, and then it'll format it accordingly. If we want to go ahead and let's say center this, we can do that by hitting the format options up here, the paragraph format options, and that'll center that data as well. I basically selected both columns, and by clicking on the top column and then dragging down to the secondary column, both columns are now selected, and now I can go ahead and center, right justify, center justify, or left justify those particular columns. I'll do the same thing here. I'll go ahead and left justify that. I'll do the same thing here, and I'll left justify that. Now, if we run this, we can go ahead and start to see our report start to take shape. Now, one of the other things that we want to keep in mind is if the data is too far apart and we want to start to bring it closer together, the actual edit options that are available to us are at the top. You'll notice that it doesn't work right here. If we try to move, we don't get the little hand that allows us to move our data back and forth, but we do get that editing option up here. So this is where that you'll usually come to do that. And then you'll notice the field over here did not fit over, so we'll have to drag that back over here. Let's go ahead and change our headers. And let's change the last header to the RFI subject. Let's go through and run it. And now our report's starting to take shape. Now, also notice though that it's basically one long continuous feed going straight down. If we want to go ahead and see this broken up a little bit better, we can see it by pages by clicking on print preview, and then we'll see it broken up by pages when we click on print preview. One of the things you'll notice though is that the header is not continuing on any of the other pages. And so in order to accomplish that, we'll have to go back to the table and make sure that the header as a whole will be continuously printed. So we'll do that by once again clicking on our table option. That brings up our table. We'll go down to layout, which is a layout view. We'll go to column headers, print on every page. The default is false. We'll go ahead and set that to true. And once that's set to true, we can go ahead and preview our report. And now we see our items being printed out on all the pages. All right, I can go up and change my title to test report or whatever else I want to set it to. And then I can run the report and the change is automatic from there as well. Now, one of the other things that I can do is, let's say that I want to go ahead and also show the FMT contract delivery. I can go ahead and enter that as well. I'll just need to make sure to either select it from here, from the FMT contract delivery, or if I already had the field copied, which in my case I do, I can just paste it in. And it's already input. And then when I run it, it'll show my formatted contract delivery information there. All right, so one of the other issues that comes up when dealing with reports is working through certain functionalities on the reports. If for some reason we wanted to get an expression type view on the report, let's say we want to find all the signs or something to be done on the sign, or if the text had a particular sign element, we can go through and work through expressions doing it this way, or we can work through what's called conditional formatting. And the conditional formatting allows us to create a new rule. So if you've used Excel and Excel's conditional formatting, it works pretty much almost the same. You'll go ahead and define a new rule. You'll define a new type of expression. The expression that you will define is pretty much the same expression from before. It's going to be equal, and then fields.rfi subject. And then let's say you're looking for something that either has another text in it. You would preface it with a %, and then another % at the end. That means anything with this sign inside of it. And once you're done with that, you can choose a particular style. Let's say we want the background color to be, let's see, lime green. Click OK. Then we'll preview. And then anything that has our sign in it, so this is signage, anything that has sign in it will basically hit that background color of lime green. And that's where you can do your conditional formatting so that you can call out information from within data that you're trying to see. So that way you don't have to go through and search for information or try to filter that information. You can actually visualize it on the report itself. So, and that's just one piece that we can do. There's also some other things that can be done as well. We right click and choose, let's say, the expression. Our expression elements up top here actually have several different options that we can choose from: constants, fields, or functions. Within our functions, we have aggregating functions, conversion functions, data functions, and these pretty much work the same way as the equal sign does when you are assigning the variable information, such as I did equal sign fields.rfi subject. you'd basically do equal sign and then the actual function name. So in this case, let's try to do a substring. And so we'll come up here. We'll do substring. And since we already have our equal sign at the beginning, we don't need to include the equal sign that surrounds this particular text. The start index will be 0 is where it starts from. And then let's say we want to choose the first 5 characters from that particular substring. We'll say OK. And then we run this. And then it'll only select the first 5 characters from that particular substring. So those are the type of elements that you can do with the overall report builder tool, Telerik report writing tool. There's quite a bit that you can do on top of this. One of the views that we have down here, which is pretty helpful, is our snap-in view. So if you want to snap in to a particular area, or if you want to show the grid view, you can choose this particular option. If you want to turn off snapping to grid lines, you can choose that option. Or if you want to turn off snapping to snap lines, these are all elements that allow you to be either a little bit faster, or if you're already familiar with designing reports and they're inhibiting your report designing, you can go ahead and turn them off from there as well. The other option that we have also is by clicking on each one of the items here and choosing their individual elements from the main blanket properties, you can affect their behavior as well. If you click on the blank area, the gray area of the report designer surface, you can then be taken to the page properties, and then you can affect the layout for the page properties as a whole. So if you want to change the orientation from portrait to landscape, you can affect it there. If you want to change the margins, you can do that there as well. All right, and then the last thing that I want to bring up on this particular designer is, let's say that you're working with elements here, because this is a gotcha when people are working with this. They'll think it's like Excel, where you can highlight these particular fields, and then up here, let's say you want a bounding box that surrounds everything. You go ahead and choose the bounding box, and then you'll run the report. It'll run the bounding box, and then you say, okay, I don't want the bounding box anymore. You'll come back to choose the fields again. You'll come up here and you're wondering, hey, where do I get rid of this bounding box? So that's one of the elements that's different. In order to get rid of the bounding boxes, you'll actually right click on them and then you'll reset the style. Once you reset the style, it'll clear the style that you've applied, and then you can preview the report again, and then it removes your particular bounding box, or whatever styles that you've applied to that particular report will be removed, or that particular element that you chose to clear will be removed. All right, and that's just from a collection perspective. The other way to actually do this is from a custom query. So we're going to go ahead and do that from a custom query right now as well. So I'm going to exit out of here. And once I exit from out of here, it's going to ask me, do I want to save the report design changes to the RMS database? Because I was actually working on it locally on my machine. So now I can save it back to the database. It'll go through and save it to the database. And now it's actually stored into the database now. I can click on the back button. And if I want to go to my particular report, I can scroll down either by the number here and then find my particular reports, and as my TT4 report. All right, and that's basically the custom report designer for Telerik there. But one of the other things that we can do is we can create our own query definitions and utilize those query definitions in custom reports. Because one of the downfalls to the Telerik custom report is that trying to use multiple tables within your particular report can be very difficult to do. Usually they want you to aggregate all of your data into one query, either using selects and joins to make sure that your data is properly formed, and then you can utilize that particular data and utilize grouping to be able to traverse your data once it gets into the report. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and create a query definition. Actually, let me back up one and let's go to QA/QC and daily reports. And so just so you know, this is where I was getting the information from. So this is where I got the rep number, the inspection date, the information. So if I'm doing daily log there, I get that information from there for the daily log information. Or in this case, since I was working with RFIs, I can actually go in here, right click, and this is where I got the RFI KTR information, date submitted, RFI number, and then the RFI subject information. So that's where I was pulling the information from earlier, just to make sure we get that on the recording. All right, so from there, I went out a little too far, but from there, we're going to go back and go to our district library, and then to our custom reports, to our query definitions. And then within our query definitions, we can then come through and we can create and add a query definition here. So in this case, we're going to add a query definition. All right, and so within our query definition, we have our query name. Once you add it, it can't be changed. And we have our title of the query that can be changed if you need to modify it. And then we have our report description. And then we actually have our SQL for the information there. With that, I'm going to open up my SQL text. And then I actually have some SQL that I'm going to paste in here. I actually have two examples of this one, mainly because some of you might know your Office ID, but some people might not know it, so I'll show you a different way to do it. So in this case, we have our select statement, which is grabbing data from our date submitted field, our RFI node field, and our RFI subject field. It's grabbing that from the RFI KTR table. We have an alias created, which is called R. We designate it as R. And essentially, when we're using multiple query selects or doing joins, the proper formatting is usually trying to make sure that we select an alias so that the fields and information don't get confused. We go through and we're referencing our left outer join. We're grabbing the contract table, and then we are aligning the contract table with the contract ID from our KTR record. And then we're also grabbing offices and joining that on the offices ID of the C.office ID, the contract office ID. And then we are constraining it to where the O, office ID here, is equal to our office ID parameter. So these are dealing with parameterized queries, and parameterized queries are essentially the building block of making sure that you are following best practices for security. And I'll show you how to input your your parameterized query inside of the record just a little bit. And then our last one is and row num is less than or equal to 150. Essentially what we're doing here is we're just not bringing everything back. We're limiting it to only 150 rows, just so it doesn't keep spinning or having to go through the whole district process. Once our office ID parameter is set up here, and we can note the parameter by the colon and then the actual office ID info, we will then go through and create the parameter here. And we're going to call it the same thing, office ID, office ID. And then this will be a string. And then in this case, we're going to go ahead and put in our office ID there, which is our office ID is E10020. We can go through and execute the query. If we wanted to change the office ID up here, we could, and then we can execute this query, and then it'll go ahead and show us our data. And that's pretty much the building block of our particular query. Now, one other element is where the user might not have a particular or not know their office ID, but they might know their office FL name. So if they know their office FL name, we can do something else where we can pretty much come in here and instead of doing office ID, we can do o.fl office name. And in that case, we can change our office. There. To our office name. And then we can pull in a particular office. In this case, I got a test office that I can use. So we'll do Baltimore test office. We can go through and run our test query there. And that'll run our information. So it'll basically give you the same set of information. So if you don't know what your actual office ID is, you can't get that, you can go ahead and use your office FL name. That's the code for the office. And it's the short name that you have, so you can utilize that. All right, so with that being said, this is already done. We have our query here that we can utilize. And once our query is built, now we can actually go to our custom reports. And from our custom reports, we can create a new report. Same thing that we're doing before. And then we can go through and select our RFI KTR train the trainer report. Now, one of the things that I didn't test, I think one of the elements here is that the report designer contract ID. Usually, you still need to enter the report designer contract ID because when I tried to do it without the report designer contract ID, it didn't pull up any data, so I had to put that in there in my previous tests anyway. So I'll probably have to ask the developers exactly what the constraint values are for that. All right, and if you saw there, it basically ran and executed the query before it ran the report, so they can pre-populate the query information and feed into the report designer. All right, and then you'll notice now in our Data Explorer, when we do that district level report, we actually have our query, our Train the Trainer RFI KTR district level report, as well as our RMS District Essentials report data source. And that gives us our contract counts, our district name that we can utilize. So if we're running through, we can bring that over. If we preview the report, we should start to get data. That's T2 Baltimore District for our district information. And then there again, we would bind the record information the same way. We would come over here to our select our table. We'd go down to the data element, which is right here. And then we go to bindings. We create a new binding. We drop this down to our data source, which is going to be right here. And then we'll drop this down to our fields, query, TTT, RFI, KTR report. We'll choose OK. And now we have it bound. And then from there, I wonder if this is the case sensitive one. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So one of the things I noticed, even when you place the items in lowercase, so let me see if I can switch over. No, I won't be able to switch over. But I'll go back as soon as I'm done with this. Even though my query as a whole is in lowercase, so I did r.date_submitted and I placed it in lowercase. When it gets generated and pushed over to Telerik forces it into uppercase. So when you do the custom queries, they will be in uppercase. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind when you're working with the overall designer. So in this case, if I come over here and do the same thing, fields.r5_no, I have to do that as well. Yeah, and that'll be the same thing. So if I were to go ahead and put this in lowercase, it won't show anything. It'll just be blank. So if for some reason the users are saying, hey, I can't see any data, that's one of the keys is that you got to make sure that it's case sensitive. If they're working with custom queries that are at the district level, those particular custom queries that are at the district level will actually need to be case sensitive. So no. All right, and then from there, we can go through, and then we have all of our data entered through here as well. And then from that point, we can go through and start to edit our particular report or make whatever changes to our report that needs to be made so that we can get that data to be visible once again. Same thing, print preview, to show our print preview, and then go through and do our headers so that our headers print on all the pages. And then we'll have our header information printed on all the pages as well. All right. Okay, so let me go ahead and close this. And yes, we'll go ahead and save it. All right, so right now I created this report, and I created it as a district report at the administration level. And that particular report now will show up in our summary reports. So I'll just make this to make sure, just so we can see it. So, and if we wanted to go through and see that particular summary report, we can go to the summary reports, and then we can see our summary report here that I created. It was underneath the district level, and it's still under construction because I designated that report as under construction. All right, and I think I covered all of the topics for that particular area. I mean, obviously, I didn't go into groupings, and I didn't go into fully defining what left outer joins are. Those are going to be a little bit larger topic than what I can actually go through in this type of training. Probably more of a day-long training. But in essence, that's just breaking the ice on the designer for you. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Gerald, is there a way to find other data fields in RMS? Because I know I've done a couple of custom reports, and your support people had to help me because the data I was looking for was stored in like a calculated field someplace else in RMS. Is there a way to get a list of those?
Yeah, the way to get a list of those is by contacting us at the RMS Center, and then we'll work through to help you get those. Those are not usually made available, and sometimes they'll change. So yeah, the best thing to do would be to contact us, and then we'll be more than happy to give it to you. I think, we've worked with you before, James. So, James McGuire, myself, Paul, we can assist you with that. Those are far more advanced type reports anyway. So yeah, you'll probably need one of us to actually get you that info. But no, those aren't available in regular data dictionary. Over.
Okay, that sounds great. And then I had another question for you. One of the things we've noticed is that it's the placement reports. And so placement reports are kind of weird. And since now the CFUMS uses the accrual-based accounting, we're trying to develop a report that has the accruals and the accrual reversals each month to show the actual placement to match what CFUMS counts as the actual placement. Is there a way to show the accruals and the reversals in a placement report if we designed one?
I'd have to think about it. I'm pretty sure that we can probably design something either using back-end invisible tables, and then basically creating either some custom joins and then aggregating them all into one data set. We could probably work with either Joe or James and come up with something for you. And I know that we can get that kind of stuff done. I mean, it's not going to be easy, but obviously someone has to be first. So I guess you'll guinea for everyone else.
Great. Yeah, so I'll just put in a ticket once I get a few more things hammered out on what we want on the report, and then I'll work with you guys then directly.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll definitely work with you on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, perfect. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so next up is the summary reports area, and I think we touched on it a little bit. You pretty much go to the summary reports, and then you select the report that you want to see from the summary report. Some of these reports are custom reports, which were in the production in RMS. Some are created by RMS Center and RMS end users. Basically, just double click on a report you want to preview or print, depending on the report you want to view. It may take a minute or two to run, but you'll still be able to run it. Now, there's a quick note here, legacy reports to be removed in upcoming releases. So you might not be able to find those in later releases. You just want to make sure that you, if for some reason you need to move those over to the new Telerik reporting, you want to get those particular legacy reports transferred over. Some reports will run without any options, and some reports actually have selections that need to be chosen. All right, and I think that pretty much covers it for the reports area. All right, the next area that we're going to cover now is the RMS schedules tab. And essentially, construction projects are notoriously difficult, and they're known for encountering a lot of delays. They involve a lot of moving parts, teams, equipment, and materials. If any discipline needs a well thought out schedule, it's construction project management. And RMS includes a section to manage the various schedules to control many of the phases of construction and managing the contractor's timeline to minimize those types of delays. So once a contract is selected, you can select schedules from the contract main menu. And then from there, we'll go ahead and take a look at a couple of things. As an overview, some contractors use third-party tools to manage their schedules. And one such tool is Primavera. If you're working with like a very small contract, a very small schedule, you may be able to manage it inside of RMS by just manual data entries. However, for the majority of projects, a third-party tool will be a necessity to manage those schedules. And that's where the NAS or SDEF comes in. NAS is just network analysis system. SDEF is standard data exchange format. They're pretty much synonymous. So whenever you see NAS and SDEF, they're pretty much the same. What we're particularly using them for. So NAS activity schedule used to keep track of the actual and scheduled start-finish dates of contract activities, and used to process pay requests. We review contractors' schedule will continue to be outside of RMS 3.0 government mode using contractor schedule software. So if they have a more advanced schedule, they'll be using some type of scheduling software like Primavera. Back in the day, they used to use like Aldegraph, PPMS 80, and things like that. Some even use Microsoft Project, but for the most part, I think Primavera is pretty much industry standard now. The activity schedule can be entered manually or by SDEF import. So if you want to import your custom schedule that you have in another third-party tool, you can import that within the SDEF. The COR can switch to a manual schedule for Gantt schedule or NAS schedule, whichever is required by the contract or whichever your district deems fit for that particular contract. For network analysis system activity schedule, it's critical that the actual start and actual finish date activities in NAS schedule are the same dates added to the actual activity start and finish dates as entered in the TC daily reports. If the dates aren't the same, RMS will import the dates, and that's because of one of the constraints. We did show that yesterday, where when you're setting up your contract setup and you go to the submittals and schedules tab, there is a checkbox down there where it forces the constraints for the schedule dates to match the QA start and finish dates. So importing SDEF schedule into RMS 3.0 contractor mode is done in the import export module. We did show that yesterday as well. After the import of the SDEF schedule in RMS 3.0 contractor mode, the contractor shall ensure there are no variances between the sum of activities and CLIN amount and between contract amount and sum of all activities. So the government can't approve a NAS schedule in RMS as we did before. However, we can basically say, yes, allow it to be brought in. There also is no summary compare buttons as there were before. Now you actually go to that report to actually run those. Contract must contain section 0132, 01.0010, project schedule or equivalent within your submittal section as well. So when we go over to the activity schedule, there's a manual activity schedule. If you have a manual activity schedule, you can go through and you can start to add your schedule start, schedule finish date. With the manual schedule, contractor will manually enter the pay activities under finances, pay activities and submodule, and then enter schedule start and finish dates under schedules, activity schedule, and enter the actual start and finish dates and the QC daily reports. And then by using the blue tiles along the top of the data grid, you may quickly view the activities and all activities not started, in progress, not finished, and finished. All right, let me go ahead and switch over here to RMS. And let's pull it up here. All right, so basically we start off out here. And essentially when the contractor comes in, they can enter their schedule. Their schedule information is entered here. They can enter in their start finish dates here. Their activities, though, let's see, administration. Yeah, so it's right here. Okay, so managing the activities will be under the QA/QC, and then the QC daily reports for the actual starts, actual finishes. If you're selecting a daily report that is not finished yet, you can go to activities started finished, and then this is where you would go through and add your actual start finish date. Sometimes the contractor itself or the contractor themselves may have entered a date that doesn't match. This is where they would go to actually change that date to make sure that it matches their particular schedule. So both need to match exactly to ensure that those particular dates can be utilized and they can be brought in with SDEF if they're not doing a manual entry. So those are the two places that you would normally go in order to deal with the dates as a whole. All right, the next up is the milestone schedule. And the milestone schedule is simply a timeline that uses milestones to divide a project schedule into major phases. So due to its simplicity, it's used when project managers or sponsors need to share an overview of the project schedule with stakeholders or team members without going over every single minute detail. So the milestones provide a way to more accurately estimate the time it will take to complete your particular project by marking important dates and events, making them essential for precise project planning or scheduling. Because of their versatility, they're an important element of project documents, such as the project schedule and the project plan. Now, in our case, milestones like tasks can also be linked. That is when the phase of one milestone cannot begin until the completion of the phase before it. That way, you're not blocking a team member if they have something to do by having them wait or by not allowing them what they need to move forward in their particular task. And RMS gives you the ability to perform these types of tasks. The milestone schedule here is taken out of the administration module and was moved to the schedules module. That way, it gives you a more succinct area so you don't have to keep jumping out, since the milestone schedule is a type of schedule. You can view the milestones by clicking any one of the blue tiles at the top of the area in the header portion of the milestone schedule and the submodule, or you can group by any of the columns in the data grid. So let me go ahead and pull up the milestones as well. Hold on one sec. All right, and as we're viewing the milestones here, we can go ahead and see these particular milestones. Here we have contract milestones, system milestones. We can go through and edit a particular milestone. And when we edit the milestone, we can see that base schedule events dates on manually entered date or other milestone or activity. So we can do our linking there. And we can also select a particular phase to base it on or if the milestone date is not required, we can go ahead and indicate that by checking that box. If we have a date time, scheduled date, an actual date, or scheduled time, and then we can indicate whether or not we want to record that time as well. And then we can indicate early finish, late finish, mid float, depending on the options that are chosen inside of base schedule event date on. So those are all the elements that we can be done. The main gotcha with this particular area is sometimes you're able to get into like a circle, essentially one milestone linked to another. But we do have a check in there now, which actually tries to prevent that. So you should not be able to do a circular link that links one milestone and comes back. So you shouldn't be able to do that now, but that was an issue in the past. All right, the next up is the placement schedule. So the project schedule, being a management control tool, may be applied to many aspects of work by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Project schedules can be utilized by management for in-house analysis, such as engineering and design and life cycle project management. An example is in forecasting annual office budgets by analyzing projected placement from early finish and late finish sorts of costs have been assigned to those particular activities. In the planning phase, schedule analysis can be used to set construction durations prior to advertisement, or it may be used in running scenarios for acquisition selection, or basically you're trying to maintain and keep the schedule on track. So you go through and you utilize this. One tool that we have built in is the S-curve, which refers to a chart that is used to describe, visualize, and predict the performance of a project or business over time. More specifically, it is a logistical curve that plots the progress of a variable by relating it to another variable over time. So RMS allows you to be able to go through and manage those types of information. So our placement schedule submodule placement curve tab is where you can customize your projected placement curve as well. So let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. And we have our placement schedule here, and from within our placement schedule, we have different options. Placement based on, we can do manual entered projected monthly earnings. We can do our S-curve from district, library, modified for actuals to date. Our contractor's activity schedule, start and finish dates, whichever option that we want to choose. We can actually select a type of S-curve that we want to use as well, and we have multiple S-curves to choose from. You can actually create a custom S-curve in the district library as well. We have our segmented model over here. So our placement start date, some of these selections actually trigger other selections in these other quadrants. So if we choose a quadrant over here, if we choose a quadrant over here, it'll modify the different quadrant areas as well. So that's one thing that you want to keep in mind. Sometimes people will say, hey, I'm not seeing this display in this area. It was there yesterday. Well, sometimes if someone changed a particular option in one of the other quadrants, it will affect one of the other resulting quadrants. We also have the placement schedule. So monthly placement tab is where you can compare actual placement with the scheduled placement. And then actual versus projected placement tab allows you to set up projected schedule placement. You can copy schedule placement to projected schedule placement, or just manually add percentages if that is required. And then the actual versus baseline tab allows you to set up original projected placement and mid-year projected placement as well. So you can go through and set that up. All right, so let me jump back into RMS. And then essentially it's these four tabs up here. We have our monthly placement, and this allows us to go through and edit and change our information there. And then we have our actual versus projected placement. And we can go through and add our percentages here as well. And then we have our actual versus baseline, and we can go through and manipulate our information here. Now, I'm not too sure what the gotchas are on this one. Mainly, I don't usually get too many questions regarding this. So at this point, I'll probably leave it to Bosley or James to jump in and let us know what some of the gotchas are for these particular screens. Bosley or James, you guys want to jump in and add what are some of the gotchas that people run into on these screens?
So when it comes to placement, one of the things that we usually tell people is to make sure not to go back and try to change what you've set already. A lot of the times when people get in trouble with placement and placement curves, progress and whatnot, it's because they set the contract a certain way when the contract started. As the contract goes, obviously it's reporting non-green progress, right? Or placement, or however you want to say it. Those obviously mean two different things. But when you go in and you try to make it green by changing the values that were there, a lot of times that fires off a lot of code in the background that will cause problems. So those of you that have worked with RMS for a long time, you will recognize that these modules have been, you could say, hotly disputed from time to time. We've tried to go in and change these a couple times. Just for the users' understanding, headquarters is working on changing these modules up completely. So what you're looking at right now will change I wouldn't say recent in the near future, but it will change. So headquarters has gone through, redesigned a lot of, and tried to standardize how a lot of this works, because we have some districts that follow the placement schedule completely, and other districts that go in and they use it a different way, and of course those two don't mesh necessarily. So the big thing we say is just make sure not to go in and try to change things after the fact. If you do, you can get to the point of no return fairly quickly. But question: can you set a baseline for just one project at a time? James, can you help me out with that one? I do not know the answer to that one. So the question is, can you set a baseline for just one project at a time?
I'm pretty sure that you can. I don't think there's any limitation or requirement for any certain number.
That's pretty much all I had, Gerald. I mean, I think these modules kind of get a little bit complicated. Outside of that, I really have nothing else to add. Were there any other questions or comments on this module?
All right, doesn't seem so. All right, thanks,
Cool.
Paul. Thanks, Jim. All right, let's go ahead and jump next to the feature schedule. So the definable feature of work is basically any task which is separate and distinct from other tasks and has separate control requirements or is identified by different trades or disciplines. Definable features of work are identified in the contractor's QC plan, and the contractor will perform control activities for each of the definable features of work, i.e. preparatory, initial, follow-up inspections, QC tests, etc. RMS calculates the start date and finish dates for each of the definable features of work by finding the first activity start date and last activity finish date and linked to that definable feature of work. And then the preparatory inspection and initial inspection scheduled and actual dates are manually entered by the contractor here and lets the QA know of upcoming preparatory or initial inspection meetings. So this is rolled up. This is a rolled up feature schedule, which makes an excellent scheduling for monitoring the progress of a particular task. So in essence, you can go in and you can set those up manually. Bring RMS up. Let's go back one. And So basically, we have our definable feature of work here. We can double click on definable feature of work. It allows us to set up our preparatory, our initial, and then our multiple prep initial schedule meetings. So if we have multiple prep and initial schedule meetings, we can go ahead and set those up in here. This has probably been the most straightforward module that I've seen. I don't think I've gotten that many questions from this particular module. If I do get a question, it's usually referring to the import, if they're importing an SDEF and their feature of work didn't come in. That's usually the question I get. And for the most part, as long as the feature of work was input in their package and it wasn't duplicated, it should come in without an issue. Sometimes if they don't check the box for the feature of work, then that will not allow it to come in. But for the most part, I haven't seen feature of work fail. So that's the definable feature of work as well. All right, and then we can go ahead and open it up for questions. All right, you're unmuted, so you guys can go ahead and ask questions now. Over.
Great. Gerald, on the milestone schedule that you had up, there's system milestones, 13 of them. And when you do a linking to P2 and you have multiple P2s, it reports the same milestone dates to all the P2s. Is there a way that that could be assigned to different ones? Because we have end dates that are different for some of those P2 actions. Over.
So I can help answer that question. If you assign the project to phases, then you could set up a separate P2 project for each phase. So that might be one way that you could accomplish what you're asking, because you can also have a separate set of milestones for every phase.
So it would create another set of system milestones for each phase then?
Correct. And what you'd want to do is, if you want to do it from the start, is create a separate WBS band in P2.
Right.
And that will automatically create a separate phase in RMS as long as the contract setup has the setting unchecked so that you're not using just one phase. Otherwise, it'll combine everything into one phase.
Great, great. Yeah, because we have some milestones that you'll have a contract end at one point, and then you have an add-on from a mod later for another WBS for another added work. And tracking that P2, sometimes it was only doing it to the one. So doing it that way would be much more beneficial. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, copy that. Thanks, James.
This question is in respect to the earlier question. Does IMS have any relationship with PD squared?
So the question, if I understood it correctly, was in relation to the earlier questions, does this have any relation to PD squared? Is that your question?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Go for it, James. It's all you.
Okay, yeah. So we don't have an interface with PD squared. However, all the modification information that comes from RMS creating the SF30 does need to be entered into PD squared. And so ultimately, it'd be nice to make sure that the mod number and everything in RMS matches. Sometimes they don't and everything gets signed, and some districts just go ahead and leave it that way. Other people like to make sure that they match back and forth. But all of that is a manual process. So anything you're doing with PD squared has to be manually done. In the future, if they get a CWS going, then that all is going to change because they'll be taking over that and there will be an interface for that. Over.
Thank you.
All right, copy that. Thanks, James. Yeah, so basically, Francis, you'll still have to swivel chair the information until a proper interface is defined and accepted within the core. All right, I think if all the questions are done, we'll go ahead and move to the next module. All right, so our next module is the closeout module, and the closeout, a contract closeout occurs when a contract has met all the terms of the contract and all administrative tasks and actions have been completed, all disputes settled, and final payment has been made. This includes those administrative actions that are contractually required, i.e. proper security, patents, royalties, timeline, proper contract closeout. This all ensures that all invoices are paid, reduces the burden on the industry, mitigates risks to losing funds to interest payments, ensures agency remains compliant with the Prompt Payment Act, de-obligates any remaining funds, creates archived contract files in accordance with the FAR 4.805, reduces the number of open contract files needing management, and the procedures for the contract closeout for the federal acquisition regulations are located in 4.804-5. So RMS has a particular module that allows you to manage these particular contract closeouts. So once a contract is selected, you can go ahead and go to the contract closeout menu. And from the contract closeout menu, you can go ahead and start the process for closeout. RMS provides the following input screens and forms for closing out a construction contract, and more are under consideration for future releases to meet any type of additional FAR that come up. But the main screens that we have are the real property screens, the transfers, which are forms DD Form 1354, input screens and reports, the requisitions, which are DD Form 1149, input screens and reports. We actually have the CPAR, which is a contractor performance evaluation report. That's DD Form 2626, input screens and reports. We have the warranty tracking inspection screens and reports as well. The first screen that we take a look at is the real property screen. This is for military construction contracts, so real property is required to be documented by use of the DD Form 1354. This form is used to transfer a facility or part of a facility to the using service prior to or on partial or complete occupancy. So the contractor can now create the real property items and submit them to the government for acceptance. So each one of the areas in this form, you'll be able to use the real property items. The real property consists of land and capital improvements to land. Real property is anything that is attached to the land, buildings, parking lots, electrical systems, etc. Contractor can add in real property items. All contractor added RP items must be accepted by the COR for use on the DD 1354. And so usually you'll have design services during construction and assistance to the construction managers. When an engineering project transitions from that final design to bid and construction, the designer's role sometimes shifts, and then essentially assisting during the actual implementation of the design. So if you see at the top where it says include DDC, that's the include during construction, design during construction. For a real property item, the Corps needs to determine if the RP item will be included in DDC, the final DD 1354 cost evaluations as well. Once you're done with the real property, then we have the transfers, and the DD 1354 is where that takes place. Anything placed in service date on the 1354 is same date as the actual beneficial occupancy date. Transfer document milestone date is the same date as the actual beneficial occupancy date. You fill out the 3 tabs before creating the DD Form 1354. And essentially, we can go ahead and click on the DD Form 1354 in order to generate that form as well. The DD Form 1354 form can be with known deficiencies from the QA/QC deficiency listing, and then basically we coordinate with the RPAO prior to submission. So the real property accountability officer will maintain the records for all the buildings, structures, utilities, and land under the control of the commander, regardless of the type of ownership and such other records as may be necessary to account for any USA's real property or support record entries. So the RPAO is also accountable for the accuracy, completeness, and timeliness of the real property information. and that particular coordination is essential when working with the 1354 systems. You can enter the most up-to-date costs for the planning and design costs and the SNA and DDC and equipment costs as well. The DDC costs can now be added to the DD 1354 for inclusion into the real property costs, and you can coordinate with the budget personnel for these values as well. So if you're not sure what the budgeting value should be, I used to get questions on this, whereas what they should be entering, you really need to work with the budgeting personnel or the project owner who can assign you or notify you who the budgeting personnel is so that you can enter the proper information. The DD Form 1354 report is generated from inside the transfers DD Form 1354 submodule by clicking the DD 1354 icon, or the DD 1354 can be printed using contract reports closeout. So you open the contract and click on contract reports. Underneath the closeout, you click on the DD Form 1354 report, then select the DD Form 1354 file, and then you can click the preview. We do have a grouping, so you can group the report by the report menu if this makes it easier to find the report that you need. And then you can expand the closeout section and click on the DD Form 1354. The grouping is highlighted at the top. Let me go ahead and grouping is highlighted right up here. We'll actually get to grouping a little bit later so that you can see how that works as well. The requisition DD 1149 is the transfer property that's the property that changes hands during the construction process. Examples would be including government furnished property, GFPs, the contractor would install or consume during the contract performance. It would include spare parts and supplies that are furnished by the contractor as part of the contract requirements, but not actually installed. So it could also include equipment and materials that were deleted as part of a contract modification and that were beneficial for the government to retain rather than get some minimum token credit for the deletion. So, basically, if you're not trying to just get a here's something that we just tossed in, those are things that you're looking for. So when you open the requisition DD 1149 view, the data grid displays all the DD 1149s previously entered into the system. The DD Form 1149 is used to document the transfer of property to the customer and should include transfers to and from the contractor and the Corps of Engineers. The transfer may take place in more than one stage. So, you may have to repeat or have multiple meetings for the transfer to take place. If so, you will do one DD Form 1149 for each one of the transfers. So you'll basically create a DD 49 for each meeting that you have for a property that'll be transferred over. Essentially, you'll fill out the header portion of the transfer and then the shipping information and the appropriations data. You'll click on the transfer property tab, and then you'll fill out each item that's transferred. Once the contractor enters transfer property on RMS 3.0, the contractor mode side, the DD 1149 should be prepared by the government. So the DD 1149 form should be submitted along with the installed property report with the interim DD 1354. Now, please note that this data creates an audit trail where each piece of transferred property was delivered. And essentially, just keep this in mind, we cannot track what we do not have a record of. So the audit trail is very important, especially in this current ecosystem where everything needs to be able to be tracked and accounted for. So, we know that it can definitely be a nuisance to enter all this information, but it needs to be entered for accountability and for tracking, and it is related to the FAR, so we definitely need to make sure that that's kept up to date. And then we have the CPAR, the Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting. Performance evaluations contain both government and contractor comments to provide a balanced view of performance, so allowing source selection officials to look beyond contractor references. Past performance information is relevant information, so for future use, source selection purposes regarding the contractor's actions under previously awarded contracts or orders. So your input will aid in the proper selection of the best candidate for the job. So it's very important that when you're going through, you do complete the contractor path performance report. It allows source selection to objectively evaluate performance, review relevant performance and integrity information before making an award decision. Now, please note that government access to completed evaluations is restricted to those individuals who are working on source selections or who have permissions. So essentially, if you don't have permissions for this, you probably will not be able to see it. But the CPAR evaluation is the contractor performance portion for the assessment report. You can enter into the 6 tabs that are available, and the contractor name, address, contractor information, miscellaneous information, small business utilization, ratings, and the assessor. And then you can go ahead and export to CPARs. We do offer an export to CPARs. Now, some people may have remembered, let me see if I can pull this up. Let's see here. That's not it. And let's see here. All right, here it is. Okay, so some people may remember that we did have an interface to the CCAS system when it was called CCAS before they merged with CPARs. But after they merged with CPARs, and then the Office of Federal Procurement Policy issued the directive that basically provided a more secure relationship, the actual overall interface went away. So we had to change the interface from feeding it directly into their repository to actually creating an export. So that's where that export comes in. So the export file that's generated should allow you, though, to be able to take that file, and then you should be able to copy paste the information into the CPAR's evaluation on the screen inside of CPAR. And then at approximately 4 months and 9 months after transfer, the CA, that's the USA's construction agent, and customer will perform joint inspections to identify defects and plan corrective actions. The contractor should be represented at these warranty inspections in order to attain an understanding of the problems and proposed solutions. It's essential that the USA's maintain customer support through project transfer and the respective warranty period. As a result, the specific details of the transfer and warranty procedures can be tracked in RMS warranty facility modules. So basically, the warranty items are those deficiencies provided to the field office from the customer up to 12 months after beneficial occupancy. The field office confirms that the deficiency is indeed a warranty item. Individual warranty items cannot be added in the warranty tracking submodule. Only 4-month and 9-month inspections can be added. Click on add and add warranty title, warranty start date, and warranty end date. To aid in the tracking of these warranty items, the list will be used to help identify defects. Special attention will be given to the quality of, sometimes they do the quality of the roofing systems at the 9-month inspection, mainly because the warranties extend past that. You can go through and click on the 4-month inspection required button and start entering warranty items information for the 4-month warranty inspection. You can also click on the 9-month inspection required button and click entering data for warranty items from the 9-month warranty inspection option. Either the government or the contractor can enter warranty items. And once a new warranty item is entered on the government side, it will show up in real time on the contractor side. So prior to the notification system being added, an email will be sent notifying of new warranty items. So if you have a warranty item that is longer than 9 months, enter the warranty end date in the provided edit field. So that's one thing that you have to keep in mind. And let's go ahead and pull up RMS real quick. All right, and then when we hit closeout, we have all of our warranty items down here, and obviously we have our real property information here. We can go through edit our real property. We can add our real property, select our units. And then from there, we have our 1354s. We can go through and view our 1354s. And we can generate the 1354 form from right over here. We can see our deficiencies. And if we have any remarks, we can see our remarks there as well. And then we have our requisition DD 1149. We can go through and select that, edit that. We can go through and check all of the data. And then we can see our transfer properties that are entered here. We can double click that and see our transfer property, the supply action, container type, container number, quantity requested. Go back. And then we have our CPAR evaluation. We can go through and click our CPAR evaluation. We can see what the quality was, the schedule, small business. We have our multiple tabs in here, and then we can go through and see each one and enter the pertinent data. Once we're all done, we'll press the export CPARs, and that will generate our CPARs sheet, and then we can use that CPARs data sheet to then go to the cpars.com website, sign in. Let's see, double check this over here. All right. And so, yeah, so if you have an account, you'll then sign into the CPARS Contractor Performance Assessment Reporting System. You'll sign in. Once you log in, you can go through and edit the information that was produced from the export from the CPARS sheet here. And then we have our warranty tracking. To the last item, we have our warranty items here. We can check our warranty items. We can add the buildings in here. Add our building number. See our information there. We can then go through, see our warranty items and our warranty items that are listed. We have each one of our items here, our location information, descriptions, evaluation contract, and then we have our warranty inspection items as well. And then with each one of those, we can list our 4-month inspection. If the warranty period was longer than the 9 months, then we can go ahead and enter the warranty end date right here. All right. All right, that brings us to the close of that particular module as well. I'll go ahead and unmute all, and we'll open the floor for questions. If you have any questions that are available.
The 1354 form that you mentioned is for military, but then if you are doing a closeout and then you want to use the form, how do you go about it?
Say that one more time. You broke up a little bit for me.
All right. I said the 1354.
Yep.
Is for when you are doing the transfer for military. But then if it's not 1354, what do you do?
You know, I'm not sure. Most of the support that I've always gotten in was for 1354 for Milcon. I probably have to ask Bosley what is normally done.
Okay.
Bob, are you on the line? Over.
Thank you, sir.
Sure, Francis. I'll check with Bosley. If he's not on the line, then I'll contact you directly with an answer. James or Paul, can you guys jump in, or I can contact Bosley later?
Yeah, what I would do is contact your district rep. If you have any district administrator for your local area office. You said you were in the high desert. Is that California, or are you like Afghanistan district? Do you know what district you're in? No, not hearing anything.
I'm in Los Angeles district.
Oh, you're Los Angeles district. Oh, okay, cool, very good.
Yeah.
All right, so it depends on what your district does, but Just so you know, a lot of us are here in LA district as well. So, you should be using the 1354 forms. If you're using anything but that, that's special to your district, and you'd have to go to your district for advice on how to use those forms. Districts that don't necessarily follow RMS's standard, what they'll do is they'll just end up using the document package and dropping their form in that document package for the item. So, but yeah, that question's more of a procedural question, more of a how does my specific district do things? You may have to go to your district to get more information on that. There are some.
Actually, that answers my second
Cool.
question, because we normally, drop our closeout package out there. So
Yeah, I actually know some people that work on Closeout in LA district. So, if you have some
that
questions on
answers the
that, I
question.
can send you their contact information, and they might be able to help you, or if not, they can at least point you to someone who can.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Cool. Let me make a note.
All right, copy that. Thank you. All right, Francis, we'll go ahead and make a note on that. Yeah, I usually don't want to answer by the default and make it kind of gospel. So if I can get some assistance either from Paul, James, or Bosley to make sure that the answers are correct, then I'll be good. Yeah, Bosley put in the DFARS that's in there for Form 1149. So that's the one I was referring to. I just didn't list it, but I can get that for you if you want it. It's also listed on one of the engineering reports, so one of the ER documents as well. I think it's the one either from 2003 or the one from 2014. I'm not sure which one, but I can try to locate that for you. Over. All right, cool. So if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and move on. All right, and we're coming now to the ending. We're trying to figure out how to filter selection views on the RMS side, tips and tricks to making and using navigation in the RMS. The overall goal is to filter the list to allow you to find the information faster. If you're able to cull the selection list down to a manageable number, the speed at which you can verify the data will allow you to find that data much faster and allow you to get your work done quicker as well. So we have several different areas on this spot here. Click on favorite or recent contract and the contract will open. So we have favorites, recents there as well. Select contract stage, filter icon, and select contracts that are active, construction complete, final payment, and those allow you to be able to constrain your data a lot faster. You can use the export button to generate data grids, reports in Excel or PDF format, and then you can use the search box to instantly filter as you type as well. So if you know the last few digits of your contract that you're looking for, you can enter that and it'll filter your contract so that you can select it easier as well. We also have sorting and grouping data on the data grid. So we have the option that allow you to sort and group. You can click on the report menu button and all the records in the data grid will be visible, but will be displayed by each group in the ascending order. The default sort is ascending, but the user can change to descending. Definition of a data grid is a list populated with the selectable items. Let me go ahead and pull up RMS. All right, so we'll just do it from this screen. So we have this little header right up top here, which says drag a column here, drag a column header and drop it here to group by that column. So we can do just that. We can drag a column up here. I'll drag the contract stages mainly because this is a more refined group. Can drag it up here. And now it's grouped by active, construction complete, final payment made, fiscal complete future, and physical complete. So we can go ahead and twirl it down and expand it, and then we can view all the contracts underneath that particular option as well. If we want to go ahead and get rid of it, we just need to click on the X button, and then it'll take us back to our original grid. And then we can do that for all the other columns as well. So we can go through and add our elements there. If we want to layer it, we can go through and layer it that way. And if we close that and layer it backwards, so we can have our active by contract stage, and then we can have active listed by office. And then underneath the office, we'll have those particular contracts pertaining to those offices as well. That's just a powerful feature that allows you to constrain your data in such a way you'll be able to find it a lot easier. Once you're all done, you can go ahead and do an export. You can export your data elements. Real quickly was the search. So that was talked about previously. If I'm looking for the contract, I've been working with 1660 and 2207, I think. But I can just type 1660 and it'll bring up the 1660. If I was typing 0033, it'll constrain it down. So 0033, it'll search by that. Or if I type in wideband, it'll bring up all the widebands in here as well. So if I type Baltimore, it'll bring up the Baltimore test offices, so it'll constrain it down to the office as well. All right, and then there's general filtering on the data grid. So we can click the filter icon and we can add details on how to show a row, which is optional. We can then add and click the filter to apply that particular option for that particular row. This type of filtering will work on any data grid. So to clear the filter, all you need to do is click on the filtering tool and then click clear filter. All right, so let's go ahead and switch over to RMS. And the same thing goes for this, but what we'll do is we'll switch over to another contract. More data. All right, we can go to R5s. And within R5s, we can go through, we can filter the R5. So let's say we want to see R5s greater than a particular date. Let's see, that's 2021, huh? You know, probably better to do this on a daily report. 2022, okay, yeah, we have 2022 there. So let's do it that way. Greater than. And let's say we want to list everything from May. It's greater than. And less than 31st. And then basically it'll constrain our set in there as well. So if you want to narrow your view, narrow your focus down, filter that data, you can do it that way. You can go ahead and click on that. And if we want to go ahead and clear the filter, and it'll bring us back all of our data. We're also able to go through here and filter based on true, false. So if these are check boxes here, we can say, show me everything that's checked. It'll show you everything that's checked, which is true. Or show me everything that's unchecked or false. I'll show you everything that's unchecked or false. Go ahead and click clear, and then it'll list everything once again. All right, next is using the search box on the data grid. Looking at payroll screen, you will want to look at all the draft payrolls. Start typing in search box draft payrolls or 0003 for responsibility code. The filtering will bring up all draft payrolls in the data grid. Note that the search box does not work on date fields. So date fields, you'll need to use the filtering for that. But we already did the search field already, so we don't have to do that one. And we actually did the date field already as well. Contractor payroll, the contractor payroll screen displays automatically all the payroll dates for prime and subcontractors when they're actively working on the site. payroll dates are automatically entered into the program, entered by the program. Use the payroll date column filter to display the payroll weeks as well. So the data grid can be filtered by any of the 4 blue tiles at the top of the screen, or by using filters on each column. Filtering the data grid helps the user focus on the tasks at hand. So those are all the tasks that you can go through. The filters are definitely very powerful, and they allow you to constrain, filter your data down so that you can utilize and get the most power from your particular data. All right, and we can go ahead and open up the floor for questions. All right, okay, well, no questions on that one. That pretty much concludes the presentation. All of the tasks and items have been displayed and shown. So, and we even did the comparison report in the beginning, so that was all done. So at this point, I'll turn it back over to PMO. Over.
All right, thank you. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. I'm sure there's a lot of information there. But again, if you have questions that's regard to it, I think maybe comes after the fact, feel free to reach out to the PMO, or and then we can direct your questions from there. Also, remember, we do have YouTube video, but most of the people here are advanced users, so not sure exactly how much those will help, but you at least can maybe direct some other users to those videos. And again, this video also will be uploaded in a few days, so keep an eye out for that. Again, thank you for attending, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.